to the Stockholm Internet Forum. I know that many of you have been here for several days. Okay. I'll do one thing I always forget to do, which is introduce myself. My name is Emily Taylor. I'm the CEO of Oxford Information Labs. I'm an associate at Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs in the UK, and I'm editor of the Journal of Cyber Policy. So that's enough about me. I'll be your moderator for the main session today and tomorrow. Can I also introduce Gitta and Pernilla, who are the Twitter moderators and the online moderators. I think you'll be hearing more from them later. But I'd like to first of all introduce to you for our host, the Acting Director General of Sida, the Swedish Development Agency, Mr. Lennart Båge. He is a diplomat, an economist, a former ambassador, and prior to his appointment was the director of the think tank, is it Utmaning, which means Global Challenge. Lennart Båge, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see so many here. I was telling my colleagues that this is really something. And the energy that we saw at the Sida headquarters the last 2 days have been really impressive, inspiring, great. Welcome here. And it's my real great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th Stockholm Internet Forum. And it really makes me so proud and so happy to see all of you here and to see you here together and from so many countries and for 2 more interesting days, I hope. I hope you will continue to be fully energized and work on the issues that are so important, and so important that we rally around from all corners of the world. You know all the challenges. I don't need to elaborate on them, but so this is very important. This gathering here is the formal opening of the Stockholm Internet Forum 2017. And of course, I'm very happy on behalf of Sida that we could host this forum and be part of organizing it. At Sida, you know, we are working with global development and in particular with the mission to eradicate poverty in the world. And poverty is not only the lack of resources, but it is the result, deep poverty, pervasive poverty, is the result of many different forces. Either forces that prevent change or, when things are good, enable change. And the 4 dimensions of poverty that Sida is using when we analyze and work on this theme are these 4. Resources, of course, but also opportunities and choice, power and voice, and human security. And as you can deduct from that, our 4 dimensions of poverty goes very well in line with the theme of this year's Stockholm Internet Forum, the theme that is access and power. And one part of fulfilling our mission is to work with information and communication technologies. And Sida is working with the belief that this technology is a very empowering tool, crucial for future proofing for many areas of development. And access to internet therefore needs to be understood as more than its technical aspects. It needs to be understood as it relates to rights, to policy, to power, and issues that needs to be addressed. I think we all see this remarkable development in the digital field. And in many ways, the development is a result of many of you gather in this room. More people today are able to use technology to get better service from government, from authorities, from businesses, from healthcare, from schools. Internet has really become a tool for the voiceless to find a way to speak out. And the development of internet and ICTs is leading to an increased transparency so that ideally citizens can get a better insight in the work of governments and institutions that they rely and depend on. However, we also know that only access to internet and ICTs and digital tools is not enough to achieve social justice and to achieve the development outcomes that we all want and that we all strive for. People need definitely to have access to a free, open, and secure internet, but that is not enough to be truly empowered for change. When we look at who has access and who has not, we see that there's a great digital divide in the world. There are huge differences in access to the internet between men and women, between rich and poor, between countries and regions. And at the Stockholm Internet Forum, we will address these issues and we will try together to find ways to decrease the digital divide. When the first Stockholm Internet Forum was held in 2012, we still saw this as a conference. Over the years, it has developed into a process and into a forum for all of us together to discuss with old and new friends and to bring creative ideas to the table and really to work on sustainable solutions. And you in the room, you are the experts. We rely on you. We rely on your energy, your innovativeness, and your commitment. A new part of the Stockholm Internet Forum concept has this year been what is called SIF satellites. In an increasing number of countries, there has been a demand for SIF-style local internet forums. And this year, we have seen the Maputo Internet Forum in Mozambique. We have also had the Myanmar Digital Rights Forum. And just last week, we could follow the conversations from the Lusaka Internet Forum in Zambia over what has been an impressively active Twitter feed. And this fall, we're looking forward to learning more from and about the Vietnam Internet Forum. This decentralization of SIF is most welcome to us. Just as the internet is a decentralized series of tubes and networks and nodes and peers, the discussion on our joint future must be filled with input from different contexts, different fields of experience, and different fields of expertise. We need to be a broad tent, inclusive, welcoming in all with the experience and the knowledge and the commitment. Today, we are, I'm told, 500 participants here. We all come from a great variety of backgrounds. We come from low, middle, and high-income countries. I'm told more than 90 different countries. We come from government, academia, from media, from civil society, and many other organizations. And it's our knowledge and expertise that makes this platform unique. And today we will learn from each other, create, I hope, new networks, and talk about the way ahead so that this can be catalytic for an even greater development down the road. And we are here to see to it that no one will be left offline. We gather at the Stockholm Internet Forum to discuss and exchange our knowledge and together work for a free and accessible internet all over the world. And we all know that the only way ahead is doing this together. Once again, warmly welcome to Sweden and to the Stockholm Internet Forum 2017.
Thank you very much, Lennart, Båge, and I think this is a good moment also to give a shout out to all of the wonderful staff at Sida who have done such an amazing job organising this. I am very excited to introduce our next speaker. She is the Minister of Culture and Democracy. Back in the 1980s, she was one of the country's best 200-meter sprinters. She is a former TV presenter with her own talk show. This is a really a woman of parts before studying political science and then running a philanthropy fund for Skandia Insurance. She has numerous board appointments, or has had, including for a web design company. And she was elected to become the Minister of Culture here just 3 days after joining the Green Party in 2014. Please warmly welcome our next speaker, Alice Kuhnke. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the parts of the CV presentation in the 1980s, you know. I'm so old. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues, I'm very honored to be part of what will happen here and what has happened. And I thank Lennart and Sida for the invitation and the possibility. And I also want to say a warm welcome to Sweden and to Stockholm. I love saying welcome. It's the one of the best words. But another word that is my favorite word is freedom. Freedom. It is what guides me in my work as a politician and as the Minister of Culture and Democracy in the Swedish government. Freedom for the media, the free and independent arts, freedom of individuals to become who they want to be without discrimination, freedom of speech, even when it hurts. Countering arguments of populists with the arguments of a free society where we all can access information, build our own opinion, where we all can live freely. Not long ago, many of us, I'm sure, felt that freedom of expression and democratic values were being strengthened in many countries where this previously had been limited. The path towards more freedom appeared to be guaranteed. But over the few last years, we have seen the opposite development in many parts of the world. This is true not least for Europe and its neighboring countries, where we certainly did not expect this to happen, where we promised each other that this would not happen again. The development is deeply, deeply worrying. We are guaranteeing the freedom of speech and the free press in Sweden. Not all politicians in the Swedish parliament agree on this, but the majority still stand strong. However, we are witnessing more problems. We are experiencing a harsher debate climate and increasing threats in the Swedish debate. Journalists, artists, elected officials and authors are threatened and attacked for their works and their opinions. Today, more than before. It is unacceptable. Not only because of the personal consequences, but they may also have a chilling effect on the freedom of expression, on the public watchdog role of journalists, and on public debate in general. It is a critical challenge for us to safeguard the democratic and open society, which I believe is at risk. The media has, as we all know, a vital role to play in promoting transparency and accountability. whether it is scrutiny of the performance of the government, revealing corruption or reporting on crimes, the media has to be able to do its work in an open way. Threats on journalists can lead to self-censorship, and that is a major threat to democracy, which is high on my and my government's agenda. The media must be able to operate in an environment free of fear. Journalists must be able to investigate important issues and express informed opinion without fear of prosecution. In order for the media to be able to fulfill its cornerstone role in a democracy, journalists, bloggers, media organizations and individuals must be allowed to discuss and debate issues freely and safely. In this context, we also urgently need to join forces and step up against the specific challenges faced by female journalists. It is alarming that female journalists are increasingly being abused online. The Swedish government is, as I hope you all know, a feminist government. The world's first officially feminist government. Later today, you will hear from my dear colleague, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Margot Wallström, addressing what Sweden does globally as a feminist government. Bringing the situation of female journalists to the top of relevant international agendas, as well as the national agenda, is one of our many priorities. Sweden works closely with UNESCO on how to develop and strengthen the UN's work with a view to improve the safety of journalists worldwide and on the issue of impunity. I wish to take this opportunity to highlight UNESCO's never-ending efforts and tireless work on these very important issues of mutual concern. The media landscape is, as we know, changing rapidly, creating both opportunities and challenges for freedom of expression and media freedom. In many countries, the media is shifting or has already shifted from traditional newspapers and TV to digital distribution channels. Social media is playing a big part in this fast-growing revolution, often being the main arena for communication and public debate. Internet and social media platforms are empowering citizens to fully use their right to freedom of expression and access to information to disseminate opinions, information, and news. New technology is an enabler of democratic development, but we have also seen how technology can be used to spread disinformation and act as channels of hate and threats. Disinformation risks undermining trust in established media and institutions and promoting the spread of online echo chambers where conspiracy theories and half-truths become the perceived truth. But how come this has not been addressed or reported is a question that then will be asked. Disinformation erodes citizens' trust in institutions on which democratic societies are built. That is why, now, more than maybe ever, tools and learning about critical thinking and source criticism must be on the political to-do list. Dear colleagues and distinguished participants, the goal for me as Minister for Culture and Democracy is to safeguard the democratic right to information in a way that complies with the needs of the person. This is a matter of democracy, a matter of human rights, and also, of course, a matter of access to culture. In the world that we share today, all countries need to return to the core values of humanism, democracy, and inclusion as expressed in the fundamental human rights. In this work, access to information, the right to free speech, the right to express oneself without censorship or threats of violence is truly fundamental. It cannot be underlined enough. The role of the state must be to guarantee and further these rights, not to hamper them or diminish them. Those of us who truly believe in these values have no time to rest. We have to get up on our feet, and our voices are needed. Let's make the best use of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Kuhnke. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the next panel. I might have come up here too early, actually, but I think there's going to be some sort of announcement or something from the screen, but while that happens, I'll just keep talking. Welcome all here today. Could we just see, there's an amazing number of you here. How many people are at their first Stockholm Internet Forum? Just raise your hand. Wow. For those who can't see the audience, that's the majority of people here, I would say. So I'd like to introduce our first session, if that's okay. Could I ask the panelists to come up onto the stage? Thank you. Sit where you like. I'll sort of sit here so I can see the moderators, but thank you. Why don't you sit here? Thank you. Sit here. Nina. Okay. Alex, would you like to sit over there or here? Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay, we'll sit down now. Right, this first session is called Equal Access, Distributed Power. And for those of you many of you who are at your first Stockholm Internet Forum, I'd just like to say this is an incredibly interactive format. It might not be the sort of the standard format that you might be used to in these sort of conferences. So you are all experts, as other speakers have said. So please make your voices heard. There will be roving mics that will come around the room. So if you would like to make an intervention, ask a question, make a comment, contribute to the conversation, just raise your hand. There will be people who will bring you a mic, and we will come to the audience as soon as we can. But first of all, I'm incredibly excited to introduce this wonderful panel to you. I'm going to give them a bit of an introduction. I've got
Emily, is it okay to tweet while we are here? Everybody knows I do that, so yeah. Disclaimer.
Absolutely. Not many people are that confident about multitasking, but you have my admiration. Thank you. This is Nena Wakanma, who is an advocate for open data, open government, and an open web across Africa. She's Senior Policy Manager for the World Wide Web Foundation and has, among other things, she started the first gender data project. I think we'll come back to that, TechMuso. She has also co-founded many organizations such as the Free Software and Open Source Foundation for Africa. She has served as a board member for the Open Source Initiative. This is Nena. Yeah. I'd also like to introduce Nadia Al-Sakaf, who's a journalist and politician. She became the chief editor of the Yemen Times in 2005, and in 2014 became Yemen's first female Minister of Information. And when the war in Yemen erupted, she used social media, and particularly Twitter, to get the news out about the unfolding situation as it happened. As things unfolded, she had to flee Yemen in 2015 and is now a PhD researcher at Reading University in the United Kingdom. Lucky Reading. Frank LaRue will be known to many of you. He was originally a labor and human rights law expert in Guatemala, and again was forced to seek exile from his own country when he was under a death threat in 1981. When he returned in 1994, he brought the first genocide cases against the Guatemalan military dictatorships in 2000, and was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004. Many of you will be familiar with his work as UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression. What a title, very long title. But, and he delivered in that role many reports, including one that came out just before the Snowden revelations, which foreshadowed many of the events that then unfolded. He currently serves as Assistant Director General for Communication and Information at UNESCO. Frank LaRue. Finally, we have Alexandria Walden, who leads, or Alex, you prefer, Alex, who leads Google's work on freedom of expression and human rights, and her work includes representing Google at the Global Network Initiative, GNI, which is a very familiar organisation to this forum. Prior to that, she was on the Raben Group, and also before that served as a law clerk at the US House of Representatives in the Committee of Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and Civil Rights and Liberties. So that's just a very brief rundown of Alex's CV. Welcome. So our topic here today is equal access, distributed power. Can I just ask the audience, first of all, how many of you think that there is equal access? That was a question. You can raise your hand. How many of you think that access is becoming more equal, that the situation is improving? How many of you think it might be going the other way? Okay, I would say slightly more, but a mixture of views. Nena, can I start with you? What does it mean to have access to the internet in your experience, in the context of Africa? We're talking about empowerment, we're talking about gender, but what are the realities of having access to the internet in Africa? What are the challenges?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sweden. We've been here for 3 days already. I think we have a right to welcome people. And for those who are coming for the first time, welcome. And for people who are following online, bonjour. I don't think that in terms of access to the internet, I should be described as an African, or I should be described as a woman. I should be described as a human being, simple. And Frank is here, and his report has said we should make this a basic human right. So in speaking about access, unfortunately, I have to be described as an African woman living in West Africa, which shouldn't be. I normally introduce myself as Nena from the internet. And of course, you hear me say this over and over again. We will keep fighting until all of the people are free and able to access all of the internet all of the time. So it will be all of the people, all of the internet, all of the time. Meaning that the one who's in the rural area shouldn't have a difference from the one who is in the urban area, meaning that the older person should not be discriminated against in favor of the younger people, meaning that people who have little income should have the same access with people who have larger income. So all of the people should be able to access this in all of the internet. And that is why sometimes when we say some people are social media generation, it is really unfortunate because it is more than that. We need younger people or people who are coming online to be able to access the broadest internet ever, giving them the largest opportunities ever, and all of the time. It's not when the government wants, when the president is happy, when I don't know which minister thinks it is okay, or when you keep your mouth shut, or when your hair is grown. You know, those kind of things, the internet should be available and accessible to all of the people all of the time.
And yet, according to one report last year, 3/4 of the billions of people offline are just from 20 countries, many of which are in Africa. And there seems to be some evidence that rates of adoption, you know, although there's general increase, it's not as fast. You know, what needs to be done, do you think, to speed things up for Africa?
Ultimately, change is not a technology issue. We work within the Web Foundation with the Alliance for Affordable Internet, which is the largest global coalition for access to affordable broadband internet, because the internet that trickles is no longer feasible in 2017. There is a policy side, yes. There's an infrastructure side, yes. There's investment needed, but ultimately it will be human beings who will do that. But unless we are able to face the demons and say, where are the problems? What are the issues? Unless we are able to face the economic divide, the gender divide, the rural-urban divide, the affordability divide, the infrastructure divide, then we won't do that. So it's not enough to say, let's beam some capacity somewhere. It is very important we do this in recognition of human rights. We do this in the spirit of gender equality. We do this in the spirit of sustainable development. And that's why we are here to say, leave no one offline. There is something you have to read. We all read. It is the 2017 Affordability Report. Where is it getting better? Where is it getting worse? Otherwise, we may be tempted to relax and say mobile penetration has gone this way and that way. We wouldn't get a clear picture. So it is important that we advance, that we build in the spirit of equality and sustainability.
Thank you very much, Nena. And I think we're going to explore quite a lot of the challenges, but first of all, I did really want to try to explore a lot of the benefits of being online. And Nadia, perhaps I could turn to you at this stage. Nadia Al-Sakaf, you were Minister of Information, you were a journalist, you're now a researcher. Could you talk from your personal experience about what having access to these technologies meant for you as a journalist and then as the minister?
Of course, thank you, and I'm happy to be here. First of all, let's just do a follow-up and tie on the previous point, which is what triggers expansion or penetration of internet. And from my experience, I believe that there are singularity moments, like political moments that push the penetration. And for example, in Yemen and many of the Arab Spring countries, in 2011, the political movements pushed the access to Facebook, for example, and mainly, and Twitter and other new media. An amazing thing happened for Yemeni men and women. And I remember an incident of an old Yemeni man who was very conservative, and he has a problem with his daughter even going to school. And then in 2011, he went to his daughter and he said, "Can you please ask Facebook if there is going to be a protest tomorrow?" So he thought Facebook was a person and that his daughter was communicating through the computer with this Facebook. And this person himself, he wouldn't allow his daughter to go to the internet or to access internet before that. So it made a mind shift of the entire society to a large extent, because it became a political necessity. And the Yemeni people had become so resourceful to the extent that they created these Wi-Fi hubs, they shared passwords. It became more important to save and buy a package for the internet than, for example, an education or food, or access to the internet became so important. And moving on to 2014, I come from the private sector, so somebody who's been a journalist and pointing fingers at the politicians, and suddenly I found myself the politician. And I was there, and in the few months that I was starting to build a system for the Ministry of Information, I was talking about transparency, and I was talking about how access to information, how we should abolish licenses for media. And then, while I was trying to do that, the conflict, the war just erupted. And I remember, because I was quite in touch with what was going on, and I remember talking to the president at the time and telling him what's going on, because we were hearing gunshots and it was early in the morning, and the process leading to the coup d'etat in 2014, September 2014, had started. And then it was, the presidential palace was under siege and military coup. So I called my staff at the TV station and news agency, and I said, broadcast now, coup d'etat, the capital is falling. And it was there for a few minutes, and it went. And a documentary came. And I was like, what? Why are we having an old documentary instead of the breaking news? And the staff said, the rebels are now with their guns, holding the protest, the presenters, the journalists at gunpoint. That time, I didn't know what to do. I was responsible for I was the Minister of Information. I was the person the entire country and the world goes to for information on what was going on. And I had all the information, and my resources, my platform, was hijacked from my hand. So I went to my personal Twitter account, and I was sitting on my laptop, and I was like, okay, here's what's going on. And I tweeted English in Arabic, and it spread like fire. And the Twitter gave me the platform that I was in charge of 16 radio stations, 5 dailies, 4 weeklies, 5 TV stations, and all of them were taken away from me. And I was given Twitter, and it was my personal account. And in that day, my followers increased from 5,000 to 20,000 over one day. And it just helped me broadcast what was going on. And now, thinking back, had I not been the Minister of Information, I don't think my Twitter account would have been that influential. So this is something we have to keep in mind. Yes, social media did enable me, and it presented me with an opportunity and a platform to tell the world what was going on, but that was because I was already famous.
This is the sort of part of the network effects that I think we'll come back to and talk about. But this is, perhaps I could bring you in.
Sorry,
Frank,
can I just say,
yes.
The following day, the rebels actually threatened me and said, you can go and become the Minister of Twitter now. We've taken all of your agencies, and so I'm like, if Twitter will take me, I'll go. Yeah, and it's they underestimated what Twitter is to them and how influential it is. And he said, oh, okay, you can be happy with your Twitter account. Little did they know that really made the difference.
Yeah, and it did make a difference. And it's interesting to reflect, isn't it, that in that period of 2011, 2012, when this Stockholm Internet Forum was first set up, there was a moment of incredible hopefulness. You know, these large-scale political movements had been in some way influenced by or supported by social media. Frank Laroux, do you think that there is the same level of optimism now about the role of social media or role of internet access on democracy, on political movements, on freedom of the press?
I believe that the role has changed and has changed dramatically. Internet has grown, but the role it plays is different. I would like to add to what Nena was saying, which I support completely, that in terms of the connectivity, we should have, all the people should have access to all the network all the time. But I would also add to all the content. For us in UNESCO, the content is very effective. It's not only connectivity. This is a difference we have with our colleagues in ITU that's looking at the connectivity as their goal, and this is their mandate. But we are looking at who is receiving the appropriate content. Whether it's gender-oriented, whether it liberates women or not, or whether it's development-oriented and makes the SDGs possible, or whether it supports education, and very especially whether we can exercise freedom of expression and build democracy. And this, for us, is fundamental. So it should be very free and very open so everyone can use it. But tragically, one thing that we believe is happening with Internet, there's two dangers that we're suffering. Number one has become obviously much more important and much more agile, especially now that we have the mobile technology. So anyone, even when there is no infrastructure, when there's no fiber optic cable or satellite, people can connect to their internet through their mobile phones. And this has been big support and reaches out to the extent that internet and mobile structures now are interacting more dynamically, and younger generations are accessing it basically through their mobile phone more than in a computer and a laptop like older generations, we can say now. But it has provoked, I said, two phenomena. Number one is the abuse of internet for dissemination of false information. I don't like to use the term fake news because I think fake news is a trap itself. It was invented by the populism of the right for their own electoral purposes, and now is being used against the media and the freedom of the press, because it's trying to build mistrust on media and saying most news is probably fake news. This is not true. But what is real is that there is a disinformation campaign. And now there is the hacking and the opportunistic penetration into the networks for electoral purposes. We have seen the recent experiences in several countries, including the elections in France just recently concluded. So I think this is a phenomenon to look at, that we really have to put a solution to protect democracy and the will of the citizens. We have to also protect the internet.
And sorry to cut in there, but a question about that. You know, there is a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of terrible content. We're going to come on to that, I hope. But is the answer to sort of take it down and get rid of it? Is that a UNESCO-y type of thing?
Exactly, that was going to be my point. Now, we just had a conference and we said we don't like fake news, but we don't go from fake news to algorithms to tell us what the truth is, an algorithm for truth, with all due respect for my colleague from the platforms. I think it's very important to say that we don't want that the reality that we live as human beings and we communicate through internet be defined, nor by those that want to manipulate information, nor by those that want to design information. It's not by design and it's not by regulation. And I must say, and this is the second big pitfall, is that because of security concerns, prevention of terrorism, or of drug cartels in Latin America or in other parts of the world, there's a trend to become very restrictive, and we see more and more restrictive legislation around the world with very little concern for the right to privacy. There's more and more breach of the right to privacy, and more the idea that people should give away privacy and give away all their information, or for commercial interests or for national security interests, but information more and more belongs to someone else and not to ourselves. And this is also a very dangerous trend with the big data and the accumulation of information around the world.
Thank you very much. Is there, before I go to Alex, is there any questions or comments from the audience? Just raise your hand if you would like to say something. Can we get a microphone down here, please? Just right at the front here, in the front table. Anybody else? I can line up a couple of questions. Raise your hand so that they can find you. Raise your hand. Be bold. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll go to you first, and then I'll get a microphone down here, please, as well. I think we have more than one. Please stand up and say your name.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jimmy. I'm the Deputy Coordinator for the Nigeria Coalition for the Alliance for Affordable Internet. And in Africa, I think it's really great that this discussion is happening about access to the internet, etc. But in Africa, it's a little more lower level than that. If you think about the structure of the internet, the physical layers is really not that existent across the country, so across the continent. So the infrastructure divide is more of a big issue first before you can overlay the logical networks of the internet on top of that. And sometimes I think Africa gets lost in that conversation because you can't have the internet without the infrastructure that drives the internet.
And Jimmy, do you feel that the divides are getting better or worse on that? You know, that if you've got infrastructure development, you know, people are talking about 5G in some of the sort of in other countries, and if one section of the population is zooming ahead and others are being left behind, is that your concern?
So my way to actually put that would be, if you assume that it's staying stagnant and the rest of the world is moving forward, then it's getting worse. And then, of course, existing infrastructure is also going to wear out and decay, and it's not going to get replaced. So it is getting worse because you're not catching up. Population is growing, communities are expanding, and the infrastructure is not keeping up.
Thank you. Yes, please. Well, I'm going to. Oh, now I've made a problem for myself because I want to hear from Alex. I also want to hear from this lady, and I know that you. Did you want to have a quick?
I just want to intersect one very brief comment. Is precisely that point is very important, which is one of the reasons why we talk about the expansion of connectivity has to be with very clear social policies. It is not only a question of quantity, and this is the debate we're having with the Broadband Commission or with the ITU and with the big platforms. Yes, it is easy to expand in urban areas because it brings more business. But what about expanding to Africa as a continent? Yes, but not only in Africa, in all the world, rural communities are way back behind urban societies, and this is very dangerous because the gap is growing bigger. I think this should be a concern that we should have in the planning of the expansion of connectivity of the internet.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a quick question here, and then I'm going to come to Alex.
Well, it's more a comment than a question about what Frank LaRue said.
Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Marta Roldos from Fundación Mil Hojas, Ecuador. It's more about a comment. It's about the access to content, because there are countries like mine that they have been very, they are opening the internet, they are making more connectivity possible, but in the other hand, that's for business. And when it comes to freedom of expression, to free press, they have decided to take down contents by very ingenious ways, like false DMCA claims, infringement claims, like DDoS attacks, like just censor some very specific parts, or denouncing people or journalists for the use that they do to their Twitter accounts. So the people is not, the thing is, what do we have internet for? Or what is important for people, the internet, and to have this connectivity? Not just to be, to make business, or to be being able to send some publicity. We want connectivity in order to be informed, in order to be able to share our opinions, to communicate with each other. And with that part of internet is lacking, it's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Alex Walden, you've heard the comments from the audience and from the other panelists. So Google we're talking about access and power. Right. Google's the most popular website in 95% of the countries that Alexa.com measures. Now, well, I'm sure we can have an argument about the measurement, but that tells you something, doesn't it? Does power corrupt?
I feel like it's a question from one of my college political theory classes. You know, I think Google's mission is to take all of the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, to organize that information and make sure that everyone here, everyone across the world, everywhere can access it. And so while we are a big company, we have a very big goal, and really our mission is to make sure that everyone everywhere can access information, to really democratize and make sure that you know, for your example, to make sure that people can share information about what's happening, where they are, and that it's not controlled and centralized in a way that means that governments that can be well-meaning or other entities that are less well-meaning are able to kind of control that information. So I think, you know, companies are an important piece of the conversation, but we aren't kind of in this alone. We are part of this ecosystem that includes governments and civil society and academics trying to figure out how to create innovative solutions to these challenges. Are you finding that, you know, because of your success, that you and some of the other, you know, a few other global platforms, that everyone kind of expects you to solve everything? These are difficult issues, aren't they? You know, we've heard Frank LaRue talking about, you know, access to all information and to really try to stop censorship, to, you know, to be brave and keep the information up there. And yet, I'm sure that you face a lot of pressure. I mean, just the other day we were hearing that many of your advertisers, The Guardian, I've got a list of them here, AT&T, Verizon, GlaxoSmithKline, Pepsi, Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, pulled their advertising from your platform unless you do something about having their adverts along with extremist content. So how do you solve these difficult issues, and is it just up to you? So I think the first piece that's really important for us is recognizing that we are a company that's founded on free expression principles. And that really permeates all of the decision-making that we do. But we recognize that everyone is not online for legitimate purposes. There are those that seek to exploit the technology that we develop. And one instance in which that takes place is ads, and there are other places as well. We are concerned about the hate and violence in the world, and we don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution, and we think that technology, video, and various features that we create in our products can be part of the solution. So when it comes to ads, we recognize when we make a mistake, and we spend a lot of time and energy being thoughtful and kind of creating new solutions. And part of tech is innovating and iterating. And so, you know, when we make a mistake, we try something new and different. We've done that in the ad space, making sure that we're tightening our policies to make sure that advertisers aren't advertising against content they don't want. But ultimately, when it comes to search, for us, we think about it a little bit differently than we think about our other platforms like YouTube, where we have hosted content. We have kind of a different way that we approach search, because that is an index of all of the information across the web. And we want people to come there, ask a question, and receive the information that's most relevant to their query. Whereas in places like YouTube, we have community guidelines that really govern the type of content that people can access, because it's a particular community, and we want to make sure that people can go there and share information, share their experiences, share how they experience the world, and can do that without experiencing hate and violence and harassment. Okay, thank you. I'm going to line up a few more questions from the audience. Please, there's a hand there. Can we get a microphone there? Anybody else want to take the floor? One right at the back. And yes.
any women, any more women asking questions, please? Well, while we line up the microphones, could I just? This is such a broad subject, and I want to really try to sort of come back and involve everyone in the content in the question. You wanted to come in, Nadia? Nena, do you?
Yeah. Speaking of analysis, I think from my personal experience, when you are at an influential position, whether you are a person or you are an organization, and you send something out there, then you need to know what is the ripple effect of it, and what did it cause or not cause. And so I think we need to put a lot more focus on the analysis and the analytics of what has happened, the digital footprint, if you like. I just wanted to highlight that there's a session today at 3 o'clock, and it's about the analysis for activists online, and there's an app you can use. It's called Me Codify. So for me personally, when I use this to measure my Twitter influence, if you like, I was so surprised to find out that what people were interested in was not the controversial political statements, was things that have to do with humanitarian relief or with access to safety. So in a way, the internet can be used in complementing other resource distribution, humanitarian aid. It could be an empowering tool to do things that otherwise would have been very much more difficult to do, especially in conflict areas. So it was an eye-opener for me to see how the map of my Twitter account looked like.
Thank you. I'm going to go out to the audience now. The person right at the back, have you got a microphone? No, okay. Who's got a microphone? Just stand up. Please give us your name.
Thank you. I'm Ildefonso. I'm from Rwanda, from Radio Shingiro Community Radio Station. On my view, even though 1/4 is online, there's still a big number who doesn't know how to exploit the full potentials and benefits of the internet. I have the smartphone, for instance, but I have the smartphone because it's a smartphone. I don't use it to buy, to sell, to Google, to the internet. So if it remains like this, it means that even the 3/4 which is remaining, which is still offline, we not follow the step to the people online. But what we need to do is how can we teach people how to exploit the full potentials and benefits of the internet, so that we don't only have it as I have only internet, I have email, but then how do we use internet? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And but I think that leads on to a question I wanted to explore, which is like, are developing countries like becoming consumers of internet or creators? Nena, could I
That's why
continue
I'm
on
here.
this?
I think I did a video before I came here, and I said, I'm not here to answer questions. I'm actually here to ask questions about how the access I have to the internet gives me power, makes me better, gives me more education, gives me more access to health services. And I think that's where this conversation should be heading to. We come here every year, we say about the same things, eat the same food, have the same nice ride, and then go home. Come on, people. We need to move a step further in which the access we have to the internet becomes solutions to problems, becomes opportunities for people. Okay, we cannot be having the same people having the same conversations among themselves all the time. The thing is, if the same people have the same access, and then we keep extending the gulf of those who are broadband rich and broadband poor, what is going to happen? And I want you to mark my words, just in case this is going to be my last save. What will happen will be that there will be you internet people, and there will be us offline people. And at the moment, the offline people far outnumber you internet people. And very soon, you are the media, you are the social media, you are the establishment, you are the government, you are the connected people. Fine. When it comes to election, the old one who does not have any internet connection will queue up. The young one who is angry will queue up. Those who are offline will queue up, and they will kick you out of power. If they can do that through divorce, fine. If they can't, they're going to take up arms and kick you out. You know that. So what we are looking at is a place in which we use the access as a leveler for inequalities. Use access to the internet as a source of social justice. Use access to the internet, as Frank report was saying, as the basis for access to other human rights. Madam Google, I love you so much. But I was telling someone last week that I'd rather strip off my clothes for 5 minutes than have my personal Google search history be sold. Because your Google search history is more intimate than your naked body. It actually shows your head. I mean, your thinking, your emotions. Okay? So, calm down, people. Calm down. The thing is, during the 28th anniversary of the web, the web inventor, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, says, if we don't have trust that our content is well managed, if it does not belong to us, what will happen is that those people who are offline will be like, they just want to sell me. They just want to take my content and then make me a kind of merchandise. Then I'm not coming online anymore. They are going to be afraid of the internet because they don't know what's going to happen to their content. So the things we should be talking about, part of the things we should be talking about, except outside of access, is also rights, data protection, and trust. Because if you want to welcome somebody into a new world, we must be able to ensure and assure that where we're welcoming the person to, the person will feel comfortable and secure.
Thank you. Frank Larue, this brings in something that you mentioned in passing, and we seem to want to come back to, which is the sense of what happens to privacy, as I would call it.
Yes.
And the sort of a sense of exploitation, which I think will bring Alex in on.
And then let me give a frame to this as well. We in the UN, all the UN agencies and everyone, we keep on insisting that we have a new agenda, which is the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. But the beauty of Goal 16 is that it establishes what are the preconditions for development in any society. And it says you have to reach a society in peace, that is inclusive, with no discrimination, that has access to justice, that has transparency of what's being done for the public good, and finally, that it has public access to information, guarantees public access to information. This means that there can be no development if there is no public access to information. Now, that public access to information goes both ways. First, the relevant information we all need. Like I said, with a gender focus for women, but for the local development communities as well, so they can appropriate the development agenda. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, there must be the space for what we create as content created by citizens in their own country. And this is important and respected. And then finally, the privacy of the personal data, who is storing it, where it is, what services does it do. That we have, on top of the fact that this still the nebulous of where is the information being stored and what is being done with it, and that we should defend privacy, we have now the additional element of the Internet of Things, which is growing with less protocols than the Internet of Data processing. And therefore, the cross-referencing that can happen between the Internet of Things and the personal data or data processing in general will begin profiling individuals to the extent that the amount of information on all citizens will be enormous. In, for instance, a country like India, they're doing a biometric system to identify every single citizen in the country. Now, this is very dangerous because on one hand they say it's to guarantee public services, but on the other hand, it will totally profile every single citizen, even those that don't even have identification documents will have a biometric profile. So who is handling that information? Who is storing it? Where is it placed? All information is physical. Even digital information eventually needs a physical space. And is it sold for commercial reasons? Or is it given to the state and to intelligence agencies for security reasons? What is happening? The transparency of this to guarantee privacy is fundamental.
Alex, I think there was a series of questions for you there in Frank's remarks. Do you have a response? And then I'm going to go to the patient person at the back.
Sure. I think I just want to pick up on what Frank hit on, and I think it connects to what you said also around transparency. And that is something that we have recognized from early on that is important to user trust and helping them understand sort of their concerns around privacy and how governments are reaching out to companies for information. And so we launched years ago a transparency report that we continue to share more and more information about that shows sort of every single request that we receive from every government around the world across all of our services around user data and around restricting content to make sure that users can be aware of what governments are doing vis-a-vis companies. But it's not just about sort of government requests, it is also about understanding how your information is being used. And that's why we have kind of come up with various product features to help users understand for our services how their data is being used, where they can limit that and change their preferences. And so, you know, we have account features for doing that. But
there are some choices that users can't make if they're going to use your platform, right?
That's right.
They can't decide that they don't want to share information with governments or advertisers. I mean, in your terms and conditions, is there an opt-out so you can say, I want to use Gmail for my email, but I don't want Google to scan the content of that?
So there are various ways. We have a broad array of services.
Is there an opt-out for people? Yes or
an
no?
An opt-out from advertising? There's not an opt-out for broad advertising, but there's a way to...
Okay, wait.
So ads support the free and open internet and all of the services we provide free of service. But there are methods for users to control and limit the way that we use information to kind of target them with ads. And so that's something that we have created so that users can better understand what's being collected and what it's being used for. And I also want to point out that there is a common misconception that we sell information. We don't share the information that we receive with any advertisers. Advertisers can specify where they want their ads to be targeted, but that's not information that then advertisers have in their possession. So just to kind of be clear about that.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll come back to some of these issues, but I also want to take questions. So thank you for waiting at the back. And then have you got microphones at the front? Who else has got a microphone? Okay, so can we get to down here, and please go ahead with your comment or question.
Is it working?
Is it working?
Okay, Valentina, One World Platform, Bosnia. I come back to, I will not call you Miss Google, because I don't know if you are a shareholder and how much you earn from being Google.
Her name is Alex Walden.
So, Alex, but my question goes first to Nadia, which I think she said something that usually companies don't like to talk about, and it's power. She said, if I was not the Ministry of Information, Twitter would not have given the amplification that I received. So there are many voices that are not Ministry of Information, that are not certified power or powerful voice, that are just, invisibilized by the platform. So I would like to have an honest conversation and hear big corporations not saying that their mission is to connect the world or to bring information to users, but to say that their mission is to bring profit, because it's a capitalist model. A profit that goes to a specific number of individuals. And then there are all the tax exemption, there are all the tax evasion, and there is a little portion that they give back to the users. I think we need to have an open conversation to talk about the power, and the power that we use to build our platform, or their platform, because we just enter them according to the framework that they give, which is changed every now and then whenever it pleases them.
Thank you very much. Nadia, would you like to,
very
to
quickly
pick up those themes?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Now, power is a very contentious concept. You know, the academic in me is trying to pin some definitions, but what I was saying is that Twitter did not really give me the power. It was that my position gave me the power. So the influence on Twitter was a platform. It wasn't that because I was the Minister of Information, Twitter allowed so many people to follow me. People followed me because of my position. And Twitter was the platform. But what I'm saying is that there are two ways to be empowered. One is to give influence, and another is to access information and build yourself. So there's, for people like me, it was a platform that broadcasted what I was saying, and it was amplified and spread across the world. But if I was a teenage girl who didn't have access to information, like that girl whose father told her to go ask Facebook what's going on, for her, it was empowering because she accessed information. It gave her, it built her a little by little. And probably opportunities, whether it's an educational opportunity or traveling or just information itself. Then we come to think about what information is provided and whether it's misleading and so on. Also, in a way, some of the stereotypes that are there in offline vanished online to an extent for women in Yemen. I'm talking about specifically gender. Like, she was able to be a person. But then, as I see now, the stereotypes and the gender biases have come online as well. So it's like at the beginning, they were able to be themselves, and then suddenly, online now, the baggage of gender discrimination has gone online as well. So there are so many ways to think of power and what power does to you or for you, wherever you are, and the position that you take in the beginning. And there are pros and cons in all of the cases.
Yeah. Could we just sort of tease out that I'm glad you mentioned, or I'm not glad, but the view of this as an empowering platform, which seemed quite simple a few years ago. And now we're confronted with things that trouble us in offline life we haven't solved, but seem to be amplified in a very horrible way. And I think that gender hatred, particularly, they're called terms like trolling, which sounds like a game almost, or sounds like a lovely toy. But in fact often people will suffer life-changing psychological harm as a result of this. Is this something that you'd like
definitely
to just
cyberbullying or the harassment that female activists find online. Initially, they got away with that, without it, and then it followed them. So I don't blame the internet. I need to make sure that it's just a tool, it's a platform, it's just out there. How it's like fire, how we use it, and how smart we are about in using it, that enables ourselves, we enable ourselves to do something or the other. I would not live a day without the internet. I don't know about you, but if I was given the choice, I would definitely not opt to go back in time, even if it means more privacy, even if it means my information stays with me. I'll just have to be more decent about my search history.
But one view is, you showed a lot of courage in tweeting what was happening on the ground in Yemen, but that also cost you your position.
Almost my life.
It led you to become a refugee with your family.
The situation was so, the adrenaline at that day just pumped, and I was like, tell the world and everything, and my little kids were like, I didn't think for a moment that I'm putting myself and them at risk. But I was doing my job.
Would you do it again now, knowing what you've done? What's happened?
Yes, I would do it again, because there is a responsibility that comes when you take up a position, and it's not fair to have access to information and to platform, and to deny the rest of the people who depend on you, who put you in your position, and just say, because I'm scared. Don't take the position. If you're scared, don't become a politician. If you don't, thank you.
I'd like to talk more about this, but I'm also conscious that there's many people I've said I was coming to straight away. So let's go back to the audience. Who's got a microphone? You've got one, sir. Who's got the next one? Okay. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris Locke from Caribou Digital in the UK. A question actually building on some of the conversation around content production and actually picking up a bit on what Jimmy said from the audience. How do we make sure that as people come online, not only they have access to information and content, but also have access to the economic power that's created by digital platforms? We did a research report with the Mozilla Foundation last year that pointed out that emerging markets are the new 1% and that they only capture 1% of all of the value on app stores. And actually on the Google Play Store, there isn't a single country in sub-Saharan Africa that you can have a merchant account on. So you can upload an app for free, but there's no way for you to actually earn money off it by selling it or having in-app purchases. So how do we bring equality around the commercial architecture of the internet and make sure that access to power there is as equal for people as access to content is?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm going to go to Lennart and then you, Alex.
Okay, in the same letter that Tim Berners-Lee published early in March, where he raised issues on protection of personal data, he raised a second issue. When he gave the web protocol out, he said, this is for everyone. This is where we are today. But he said this year that we've all built the internet to what it is today. It is even greater, of greater importance that we build it for what it will be tomorrow. So I don't think that anyone who has any business intelligence is sitting here thinking Africa will keep buying. If you're here thinking that, you are dead meat. Because where I come from, people are developing things. Innovation is going wide in Africa. And please be ready to buy from Africa. Okay? So when we're talking about economic power, because we are here talking about access and power, what we're looking at is that the same way people in Sweden, people in New York, people in Paris have access to amenities that make them feel secure, comfortable where they live, we should give the same opportunity to Africans. And that's why we're here. Otherwise, it's warmer and nicer at home. I wouldn't be here. So the thing is, we are looking at opportunities for everyone. And you will agree with me that the millions in Africa need these opportunities more. So one thing we can do is to push innovation, access for innovation, access for financial services, access for education. So those people will be comfortable where they are, and you wouldn't have to pick their dead bodies up on Lampedusa.
But Lennart, to go to the question, it seems like if we rely on the private sector to solve this problem, they're going to turn away because they're going to say there's not enough income for us. And you know, what are the alternatives to drive that innovation? What's going to do that?
Okay, listen, I think for those of us who are here, we talk about the Googles and the Facebooks and all of those. Many of my young people are no longer using Facebook that much. Have you noticed it? There are quite a number of social media platforms now. Snapchat, I don't belong to them. My children are there. But I don't think that the future of the internet is Facebook or Google. Sorry. I think that the future is in distributed platforms that we are going to look at. I know these people have big market value and user base and all of those things, but I'm looking at new innovations coming up every day. And I don't want to lean on big American corporations, if I should say that. And I want to challenge every African sitting here. Sorry for being very, very African in this. We can come here and do all the nice talk, but we have to go home and do all the hard work so that we can build our own content. I speak Igbo. That's my native language. I originally come from Nigeria. I speak a bit of Twi and a bit of Yoruba. I do not trust that it is the Google guy in San Francisco that will build content for me in my own language. I have to do something for myself and for my own children. So I'm not going to trust all the private sector to do all the work. And that is why I come back to raising digital citizens. Concerned, responsible, empowered digital citizens who can build content that will grow this world in a sustainable manner. We are not here for profit. We are here for distributed access for sustainable development.
Thank you. I'm going to actually go to Frank next. Let
me plug in here something that we have insisted following on what Nena is saying, very important, is that internet should be driven by policies designed in a multi-stakeholder dialogue. And this is what I think is not happening. We have more restrictive legislation coming from states now, especially restrictive on privacy, because of national security reasons. In some cases, otherwise they would say to control hate speech and other speeches. Hate speech is a problem, but it's a problem that has to be confronted in a different way with media literacy and not necessarily by regulating or reducing the use of internet. And I think this is very important because we're seeing a major setback. When I say legislation, I'm talking about all around the world. The studies we have done in UNESCO now is that we're getting legislation in the Americas where net neutrality is also being done with, and in Europe, in Central Asia, in Asia, it's happening everywhere. And
United Kingdom?
In the United Kingdom as well. There's a major setback on regulation. But on the other hand, it's also true that when we talk about multi-stakeholder dialogue, we always think about the IGF or the Stockholm Internet Forum, which we all like to come because it's a big platform for civil society and it's wonderful. I think this is a great experience. Yep. But in reality, how many policies in our respective states or countries are designed with a multi-stakeholder dialogue experience? Even in Brazil, where you have the CGI.br, which was one of the big experiences, the Comité Gestor de Internet, one of the big experiences of institutionalized, even their power is being now challenged and threatened. So I think this is very important, that today is when we really must defend the multi-stakeholder nature of the debate that we should have. Because information is power, as you were saying. And power is being accumulated in few hands that handle this information, whether it be state agencies or whether it be big platforms. And for small countries around the world, in Africa, but also Latin America and Southeast Asia, for small countries, there's no way to compete against this accumulation of power with information. So we're really altering the normal democratic design of the world. And this is something we really have to sit down and rethink. We're now supporting, for instance, the idea of having national IGFs, and not only the international one or the regional ones, because nationally we believe the national IGFs can eventually become the platform to build a multi-stakeholder dialogue in country, but to force the state authorities to listen, to sit down and listen.
But do you think what seems to happen is, it's like, I don't know, we thought that this platform, that these technologies were going to change us and change the way that things work. But, what do you know? There's elites that have formed, there's concentrations of power, and in some way, is the multi-stakeholder dialogue something like this, or the Internet Governance Forum? Are these just things to give multi-stakeholders the apparent appearance of doing something while the legislators and the big companies just get on with it?
I am convinced that the IGF was designed to silence a lot of people, to keep everyone happy.
To keep them busy.
Yes, we all get together and have a long chat, and then we all end up for next year being happy. I think it's up to us to make...
Oh, but Frank, we also make miles from the airlines.
And then they throw us out of the airlines. But no.
I'm going to... Sorry, I know that we could...
But in any case... But the point I wanted to make about the IGF, just trying to vindicate it, is that I think it has changed in nature. Because after Sharm el-Sheikh, which was, I think, the third IGF or something, the debate on human rights became the fundamental debate. So I think even the debate changed. But with that change, we have to make it relevant. And one of the things with the new Secretary General, and I'm saying this on purpose to build constituency for this, with the new Secretary General of the UN, is we have to improve the status of the IGF. It has to be report directly to the Secretary General and to empower policies around the world. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Just to gather a lot of people to talk.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Right. There's lots of people who are now been waiting for a long time. If you've got a microphone in your hand, then I'm going to take 3 questions now, or comments. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and make your comment.
Hi,
nice and short, because we want to get as many people in. Thank you.
So I'm not going to pose a question, but I would like to pose a comment.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for all the speakers, for the sharing, and for this topic when it comes to equal access, and for Nana's passionate discussion on access to social justice, in ensuring that no one is left behind in the conversation. And I would like to raise the issue when it comes to indigenous peoples being left behind and remaining unconnected, because worldwide there are about 3.7 indigenous peoples, and in Asia alone there's about 2.6. But most of them are victims of human rights abuses due mostly to extractive industries concerning their land territories and resources that are being affected. And these people comes and define what is development for them. And because they don't have internet freedom nor access itself, they they are not the ones who are defining what is development for them. Recently, I went home in the Philippines. My village doesn't have mobile nor internet access, and it's 30 minutes from town. So there are only specific areas where you can connect. So I need to go to the hill so that I can connect when I'm in the village. So that's one that I hope that as we ensure that there's internet freedom and no one is left behind, I hope that indigenous peoples also will not be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next person with a microphone, and then we'll come, and also keep your hand raised if you want to come in on a question. Please go ahead if you've got a microphone. I can't really see who has one. Can we get some microphones moving around? Someone at the back, someone else at the front, and get all three out into the audience, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Teddy Rush. I'm from Uganda. I really would like to address this. I mean, it's great that we're all discussing and wanting access for everyone, but I think we need to, and this question will be addressed directly to Google actually, can we talk about capitalism in all of this push to make sure everyone is connected? For Africa specifically, we are suffering from information colonialism at the current rate. And my issue with this is the people with the largest platforms on which we are engaging, social media platforms, all of those are Western platforms that are created. Now comes in this idea where this content is being zero-rated by carriers in some of these countries, whereas you would have Facebook has a contract with MTN to make sure that all the content that is accessed by people is zero-rated. But this becomes a barrier to local content creation. And for us to be able to create content that we can actually also commercialize on the open web, how can we prevent this new age colonialism on information to where the things that we're consuming are not our own and are continually being fed to us and defined to us? How can we make it better in terms of a policy platform to make sure that governments insist that the private sector allow for local content creation?
Thank you very much. Who else has got the last microphone? Who else has one? Nobody else, so I'm going to go back to the panel. Please, can we get the other microphone? Keep your hand up if you want to make an intervention so that we can line up the microphones. There's a lady here at the... Oh, great. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Kate McKee from CGAP, and I work on digital financial inclusion. I wanted to come back to the privacy issue, where I see a pretty strong tendency to view it as poor people don't have the luxury, they can't afford privacy. They'd rather have the small loan or the digital financial service. And I'm wondering if we can strengthen the incentives for privacy by design, for inbuilt privacy, and I'm hoping maybe several panelists could comment on that and how the governments might reinforce that as well as commercially. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I've got indigenous people, information colonialism, financial inclusion, and privacy by design. Nadia, we haven't heard from you for a while. Any of those that you just spark any ideas?
No. Yes.
Well, you now have no identity. You know this. You are now Google.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Google?
I'm a person.
Alex.
I just sort of want to speak to your question about content creation, and I think I want to highlight that YouTube is a space that is focused primarily on making sure that anyone, anywhere can be a content creator. And the idea around localized sites is that that provides more access for you to discover content that is local. And then when we kind of zoom out and think about how we create policy around access to content, et cetera, I think it goes back to multi-stakeholderism and making sure that we're engaged in multi-stakeholder conversations around policy creation and implementation. That's companies that care about human rights are well, many of the companies that care about human rights are engaged in GNI, and GNI is focused on free expression and privacy.
Could you just spell out the acronym for people who aren't
GNI is the
familiar?
Global Network Initiative. It's a multi-stakeholder organization of companies, human rights organizations, academicians, and socially responsible investors focused on issues around free expression and privacy, and looking at policies and what governments are doing in that space. And so that's a way that we all work together to kind of respond to and push back and work with governments.
And how much of a constraint or restraint does the Global Network Initiative and other multi-stakeholders really, how much does it affect your actions? Or is it just a fig leaf to show that you're really nice?
No, so the Global Network Initiative, it's nothing about it is a fig leaf. It is a working organization that spends time really grappling with all of these issues that have come up so far in this conversation. It's a place where companies have the really brass tacks conversations with organizations and try to move towards solutions for how we can work together to make better policy. Companies, of course, recognize that we don't have all the answers. We're engaged in a very dynamic global environment, and so things that we're seeing in one country are the exact opposite of what we're seeing in another. We respect rule of law, but we also recognize that there are ways in which we need to advocate for users' rights. And that's part of, I think, getting back thematically to the power piece. One of the things companies can do is make sure that they're advocating on behalf of their users' free expression and privacy interests. And GNI is an important way in which we do that, because it's bigger than any one company or any one organization. It's important that we're all working together to create global norms. Because we are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but just to go back to the lady's question there about privacy by design, and really, let's be real here. Given the platform's economic model, are we ever really going to see privacy by design? You're never really going to be able to do that, are you, and stay in business? Well, I think it's sort of, privacy is of utmost concern for companies. It's not really though, is it? It is, because if users don't trust us with their information, then why would they come to us for a service? And
well,
so,
I think, sorry to interrupt you, but could I just, how many people have struggle with trusting some of the larger platforms? And how many people use the larger platforms? Okay, I think that shows you that it doesn't always follow that when people trust or distrust, that usage flows from that. But I don't want to give you too hard a time. There were some very important points about indigenous people and local language content, something that's very close to UNESCO's mission. But also, Nadia, as a native Arabic speaker, less than 1% of web content is in Arabic language. Are we going to see the retreat of language, and what will that mean to countries and cultures?
You were saying before, Africans have to go and create content, Arabs have to go wherever they are and create content. It's us, instead of waiting for platforms or multinational companies to do things for us, the users have to take the initiative and change. Stop complaining and start doing. We need to start, changing and generate content and drive solutions. And I think another thing is that what Alex was saying is that there are so many differences between different countries, like cultures. Even within the same country, there are so many different divides. And so there is no one solution. And I think we need to go local. If there is any lesson that I've learned, is that empower local solutions and find small companies or small entrepreneurs or businesses or innovators on the grassroots, and they will give you the simplest, cheapest solutions, and they have the trust of their own communities. So it's a win-win situation, and local solutions should drive the internet.
Okay. Local solutions, I'm going to go to you, Frank, and to Nenna.
you were right in saying in UNESCO we have, and specifically in our own sector in communication information, we're doing the World Atlas of Languages. And there's about 7,000 languages in the world, out of which 20% approximately are oral languages only, which is a problem. Many of the oral languages are actually disappearing. They're very much of small minorities. But there's a big effort in trying to preserve the languages, all languages, whether only oral or written. But it's specifically to develop the script. Many languages have to develop a script to be placed on internet, and this is very important. We have challenged the big platforms and all the small platforms, all the internet companies to actually add the local languages, because it is true that people think locally, express their culture, their identity locally. Development begins from the local community. So even the SDGs means relevant information in language that people can understand. And this is very important. So we believe there is a responsibility of all states to transfer all the indicators of the development goals into their own local languages as a nation, as a country. Not all nations are doing it, but this is part of the demand that we have to have as society. This deals with many issues. It deals with the connectivity, with a social focus and not only a business focus, deals with content elaboration to have local content, deals with the use of local languages and the respect for local culture and multicultural relations. This is a way of building peace in the world as well. So these are essential elements to be brought into the internet debates, which includes the indigenous peoples and indigenous peoples' languages and cultural expression. I think this is crucial. It also is a lesson for the news. We are now also thinking, yes, we have big platforms now that cover the entire world, and you can watch the news, whether it be the BBC or CNN or Al Jazeera, you can watch it anywhere in the world. But at the same time, it's very important to empower local journalists and community radios or community media houses. So this is crucial. This is very important, and to use the network for the empowerment of the local.
Thank you very much. And language is an access issue, isn't it? If you can't find anything in your language, you wouldn't be so confident to create content in that language, because you wouldn't have a sense of anyone reading it. Nena, did you want to come in on any of the comments?
Yeah, I wanted to come to my brother Teddy. Okay, the joke is that some of us who are looking for our languages online, we're not even willing to speak those languages in real life. You don't want to commit to learn and speak your mother tongue, but you want someone to create content in that. Anyway, we're going to come to that. Like Nadia said, let's quit complaining, just get up and do something. Okay?
So it's not all Google's fault.
No, I have great respect for companies who tell you we are here to make money. I don't trust a company to cover me, and that's why I read end-user licenses. I want to know. It's always an engagement. It's always an agreement. But people just click, accept, and go their way. You don't know what it is you are being sold for. I mean, if you are being sold, at least know what it is you are being sold for.
How many other people read end-user licenses?
Teddy, I think there's a phrase from Steve Biko that says the most powerful arm in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. In capitalism, the rule is simple. Customer is king. The one who needs your money respects you. And I think that sometimes we forget that, because the one who is selling to us comes with this kind of argument. In 95% of countries, Google is #1. You need Google. Yeah, you need Facebook. You can't live without the internet. Yeah, I can live without the internet for 24 hours. I know I'm an addict, but I can always do without it. You know, don't let us sell our soul into this thing. Let people understand that I love Gmail, but I also have nena.org. I love Facebook, but I also have something else. It is very important that we train digital citizens. I mean, every woman goes to the market. You know how to choose rotten tomatoes from fresh tomatoes. You always make a choice. And I don't think that access should deny us of choice. I think this is actually a golden opportunity for us to have to choose between X bank and Y bank, between X platform and Y platform. We should not sell the totality of ourselves to one platform. It is dangerous. If there is anything that power has to do, it is to be distributed. Otherwise, we're into trouble. So I pray all of us to begin to do something. I write my own blogs. I produce content. I can do it in my own language. And I think that if we sit and do nothing, the word that content is king becomes real. The one who creates the content becomes your king. Today we are talking about the Google. Tomorrow it's going to be another company. So please be a digital citizen. Be an active citizen. Contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you get a microphone yet? Can we get a microphone down to this lady at the front? Who else has got a microphone? Please go ahead and ask your question. Just here at the front.
Good
Please.
morning, Carlos Rey Moreno from Senseleni Networks. I've been hearing a lot, I mean, the whole debate has been about the potential of the human to create content and the local solutions for creating content and the community houses, I mean, the community media houses and the community radios. But what about that contribution, that commitment that Nena was talking about creating communications infrastructure? There are 4 billion people that don't have the potential, they don't have the possibility to actually create that content that you are talking about. So how can we create the tools that are facilitating people to create their own content, to allow people to create their own communications infrastructure? And that could go to the indigenous comment that the lady was doing there, to the comment that Chris made about participation in the internet economy. The internet economy is also about the infrastructure, and it's as concentrated as it is the economy of the content. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. You've got a microphone.
Thank you. I'm Yara Bedr from Syria. I completely agree for the language and that we should put an effort for the content. But for example, the World Health Organization seriously should ban a lot of pages in Arabic. Like, I don't know if tried any medical subject in Arabic, it's disaster. And so I don't know, this should be a big international organization supervision for the content, or like some of the governments. Seriously, I don't have an answer for this, but to make it individuals, it's disaster answer sometimes for a serious subject. And my second point, I would just want to say, I completely agree with Nina, because it's not fair to discuss internet access in Sweden, whereas you are talking, for example, in Syria. We are still so much under stereotype images for women, and even in jokes like or in family, laptops or iPad, it's a gift for the boy, and then the girl go to I don't know what, Barbie or shopping or something. So even if you try it in Arabic for Google, powering women, the photo or something you will have, it's really so stereotype, funny, and it's not appropriate. So we should even work more about the relationship between women and internet, more than just like, I don't know, for example, by statistics, how much programmers we have in Arabic, or IT technical ladies, more than just a user for Facebook or a blogger like making their own speech, stuff like this. But technical, digital, qualified women working on this field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else who's got a microphone? I've got one person at the back, and then I'll come to you.
Hi, my name is Eric Huerta from Rizomatica. Mr. LaRue mentioned the cyber attacks as a problem we are facing now on the internet. I want to ask about this role of governments that are like financing these cyber attacks, and also spies programs for activism, and making all the time, making with this more difficult for small companies, small ISPs, to protect from those attacks, and giving more power to big companies such as Google and Facebook, that are the only ones that have sometimes the resources to resist this sort of threats to the freedom of the internet. So how is like the UNESCO, the UN, dealing with this problem about the governments promoting and using cybercrime. You know?
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to take this question.
All right.
So
It's
Walid.
Walid Al-Sakaf. It's by coincidence the same surname. She's my sister, in fact. But I'm really proud. But I just as we used to disagree at home, I'd like to disagree here in public.
Walid, please.
You're bringing it to this place in front of all
Why
these
not?
people?
If it's for the benefit of everyone. She mentioned that if I had not been influential, my message would have not resonated. You know, I'm speaking here as a media researcher, and I've seen stories of people who had really not much following at all, and their message resonated. So I'd like to emphasize one particular example that I've done research about, which is, as much as tragic it might relate to, which is this truck attack that happened on 7th of April here in Stockholm. You may recall the tragedy and the deaths, of course, we all regret. But then something inspiring happened. An individual came out with a simple initiative, said, I'll put the hashtag Open Stockholm and show the world that whoever needs protection, whoever is fearing for his life or wants refuge, he could always refer to this hashtag, and when people respond and give him refuge. And that actually resulted in a viral impact. You found over 40,000 tweets in just in about a day or so. And that actually made people believe that if you have the right message, if you have the right timing, you can always go viral and make a change. So always stay positive and make sure that you have a strong message and go forward and you'll succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got somebody at the back there as well. Thanks for your patience. I know you've been waiting.
Thank you. My name is Maria. I'm from Tanzania. And I wanted to applaud our sister Nina. I mean, you just speak always to my heart about creating local content. And I just wanted to point out that in Tanzania, we have got a platform which is more popular than Facebook. It's called Jamii Forums, and Max is here. I don't know where he's hiding.
Max, where are you?
There he is, the troublemaker.
Stand up.
His platform is followed by even the president of our country. It is followed by all the leaders. It is leading in giving content. But there is one problem. The privacy laws that we're talking about has become a huge issue, and they have asked Jamii Forums to give out the identity of its users. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that I would love to hear more discussion about how to engage governments and to make governments understand the importance of privacy, even though there is an element of security that's needed, but we cannot, especially in countries like in Africa, we cannot encourage people to create content if every single time it's a threat. It's a threat to their own personal security. Maxence was jailed for that, and he had to sit in prison without bail for quite a number of days, which was also unconstitutional. But how many Maxes do we really have who are brave enough to say that despite the jail and despite the continued harassment of going to court, he still has not given out the identity of his followers? So I think this is really important for us to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. So any very quick responses from the panel, because I know that there are many.
Maybe Frank on security and privacy.
I'd like to have two answers. One on the first question on UNESCO and what has UNESCO done on the question of cyber attacks. UNESCO doesn't respond to individual events, but more to helps design policies and implement policies. We are talking about, yes, there is a need to prevent cyber attacks, and the proof was just a few days ago with the ransom sort of contamination, and which ironically was using the weaknesses that many sort of intelligence agencies had already seen before and did not prevent. So it also highlighted the non-prevention of weaknesses in the different websites.
Do you think that if a bit less resource was spent on spying on people and a bit more resource on
security,
getting people to actually, patch their software,
that would be probably a lot better, and I think the result would be better, because this endangered people more than anything else they had done before. I mean, this time it was done for money, but it could be done, and it has been done for changing electoral results or changing public opinion on candidates or on plebiscites or on other issues. So this is a very senior. So we're not reducing the importance of cybersecurity. It is a very important issue, and it has to be dealt with importance. But the important thing is to have a democratic and a human rights perspective of how to deal with it. So you don't give national security by weakening fundamental rights, because then you're weakening the system itself. You're weakening democracy, and a weak democracy will never be safe. So this is the essential element. Yes, we have to improve the technical side, but we must always engage in protecting freedom of expression, privacy, and all fundamental rights of everyone. On the final comment on content and the use of content and whether information should be granted for platforms, I believe privacy is a different right than freedom of expression, but they go hand in hand. You can never enjoy really freedom of expression fully if there is no full recognition of privacy. So the idea that the state can demand the release of information on the users is absurd, because then it's like the next thing will be the medical files, and the next issue will be something else, and there will always be files on society, and there will always be a request to release them. And this, what it's doing, is empowering those who are currently in power in a state, which doesn't necessarily mean democratic power. And I think we're looking at the trend of more sort of authoritarian type regimes. Even in Europe, which European Union felt that was already beyond any stage, we have a couple of countries that are very seriously moving into extreme authoritarianism by using the information on the website and by also manipulating information toward its public. So I think this is a very serious concern, because we're not only protecting human rights now, we also have to defend democracy.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've got 10 more minutes, and I think I'm feeling that there's more questions from the audience and comments, so please go ahead. And then, oh, hang on. Our remote moderators, I'm going to go to Gita and Pernilla, who've been very quiet. Please, can you...
Yes, we have a question from the internet.
The internet?
How can millennial digital natives in Africa use internet to address governance, homophobia, human rights in repressive nations?
Can you read that sentence, the question again?
How can millennial digital natives in Africa use internet to address governance, homophobia, human rights in repressive nations?
While you're thinking of your answers, please go ahead.
Sure.
And then you.
A quick question in terms of countries where the internet...
Yourself,
Maria Ressa from the Philippines. I'm a journalist. Countries like the Philippines and Indonesia have telco policies that actually funnel direct access to the internet through Facebook because it's free. And I have to say thank you for being on stage and taking everything for Google. Google has been a little bit more of the adult in the conversation. Our realities are now determined by the algorithms, which do have a Western bias. Is there anything any organization around the world can do to help break this up, or to demand greater accountability in non-Western countries?
Thank you. And you, sir?
Hi, my name is Abdi Hakim. I just had a 10 question for the panelists, but I'm trying to reduce one. I just want to talk about the content manipulation that major companies like, Google does that. And what my friend Teddy talked about, the information colonialism. Like, I just come from Somalia, and then if you put Somali on Google, the first immediate things that pops up is tragedy, war, conflict. Same goes to Eritrea or Ethiopia. I mean, the content is being, deliberately, I'm not sure deliberately, manipulated. So we as a digital citizens, we have a different story. We strive in Somalia. We go back and I run a technology hub in Mogadishu, and it's thriving. This is the danger of a single story that the Nigerian author has warned us. So my question, or sort of my appeal to the Google is, I really want to beg you, if possible, that when I put Google Somalia, I want some different information to pop up rather than this negative, bad perception. Yesterday, I was just had a quick conversation with people from privacy and other stuff, and they said, I mean, Somalia has been ranked every, index on top, primarily because of the information that has been transmitted through Google. So
okay,
we have a different story to tell. So can you please revise that?
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to put your question to Alex Walden. Content manipulation, we've heard about the role of algorithms. Can I also throw into that my own question about your role in content moderation? We've heard from Frank LaRue of UNESCO that the answer isn't to take things down. And although you're very transparent about government requests, I think the big platforms generally, I'm not naming names at you particularly, are quite coy about the human workforces who are looking and dealing with horrible content day in, day out. Is it your role, and how do you get better news out about different countries?
Sure.
The content manipulation, lots in there.
So I think you're talking about two different products that we offer. What you raised is about search and sort of the content that comes up related to search. And that is that the sort of search results are something that come about after a variety of factors are taken into consideration in the algorithm. We've recently done a lot to be more transparent around how search works. We recognize that people don't necessarily understand why they are getting the results that they're getting. And as I said before, ultimately we want people to be getting the information that is most relevant to the question that they're asking. So we recently released a 160-page document that is the guidelines for search raters, people who are kind of reviewing results and making determinations about the type of content and the quality of content. And so the idea is to make sure that people have a better understanding of the way that search ranking works and how we are determining quality of pages. And quality is a big indicator around what the results are.
Thank you. Sorry, Alex, to stop you. Do you have a very quick point, because we've got 3 minutes left?
So I was just going to say, in terms of, and then on YouTube and Blogger and Google+, where we have community guidelines that govern what we leave up and take down, that's what governs those platforms. But we do believe that censorship is not really the answer. And so we have all sorts of programs and campaigns to invest in and help people amplify their voice and make sure that they're able to use the platform to get messages across.
But you do take down content, though, don't you?
Yes. Under our community guidelines.
Thank you. Got a couple of minutes left. I'm sorry to those who wanted to ask a question and we didn't have time. Can I just go for very, very quick final remarks? I'm going to start with you, Nadia, and then Frank, and then Nena. And then we absolutely must stop at 11 because I can see the next speaker.
Okay. The internet is a platform. It's a tool. It's up to us how we use it.
Thank you. And admirably brief and succinct. Thank you. Frank LaRue.
Yes, the 2 final comments. As we were saying before, and Alex had agreed, the solution is not necessarily to censor or to take down content. I do make the exception, we do make the exception as UNESCO, that there is criminal content that has to be taken down. And we do talk about protection. Criminal content in the sense of child pornography or incitement to violence against minorities, against women, against children, which definitely has to be dealt with, and we don't believe in that. But in general, the rest has to be done on the basis of prevention and education. Now, on the algorithm that Maria Ressa was raising, I think it's a very important question. Algorithms, I don't think there's any big conspiracy, just naturally have a Western bias because they were created in the Western background and culture. And I think this is an important issue to address. We have not dealt with the ethics of algorithms and also the issue of what is the cultural sort of framework of algorithms. And this is relevant, number one, on just general culture and understanding, the perception that people have of their own reality, like in Somalia or in every other country. Issues may happen and may be real, but the perceptions may vary. So I think it's important to acknowledge. This does not change the reality of certain countries that have to also be acknowledged, but does change the global perception of the life in those countries. But even more important on the ethic is when algorithms are designed to move public opinion in a particular way. And this is what worries me the most, which is what we're talking about, the challenge to democracy, when they're designed to move opinion against a candidate or in favor of candidates or on a plebiscite or any decision. And this is serious because they do have an impact. This mass mobilization of public opinion has an impact. And this is something we should be looking at. And this is done in a very secretive way. And we, at this moment, don't have access to the way that these are designed or to have a comparative analysis of them. And this is an issue for the future.
Thank you very much. And in the last 30 seconds.
Okay, on algorithms, thank you so very much. Yeah. It's Craig Fagan here. Craig is the director. Please get up so people can see you. He's the advocacy director at the Web Foundation, and he's leading some important work on machine learning and algorithms at the moment, because that may be one of the greatest threats to the online life as we know it today. So please speak with Craig and know what the Web Foundation is doing on algorithms. To the younger people younger than myself, I will take a cue from what we're saying now. You know, you can screw the system. Sorry for that language. But the people I'm speaking to understand it. In this digital world, you need to beat them at their own game. Whatever algorithms will be used, young people need to understand how to influence it. The first page you see in my name when you search for me is my Wikipedia page. I created it myself. Young people need to get into the mind of this thing called internet and screw it.
Thank you very much. On that note, I would like to thank all of our panel and also you, the audience. I know we've run out of time, but this was a scene-setting conversation, and there are many parallel sessions after the break. So I'd like to say thank you to our panel.
Thanks, Emily.
And thank you very much. I'm going to leave the stage. Thank you very much. So as the panel are leaving the stage, I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is State Secretary Annika Söder. She is the State Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Margot Wallström, who's unable to be with us today. She has, over an incredibly accomplished career. She has been an ambassador, a negotiator at the EU, and a spokesperson for Head of Press and Culture. Welcome to the Stockholm Internet Forum. Annika Söder.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you may wonder why you need to listen to another government speaker. And this is, of course, because for our government, it is of key importance to pick your brains, and I find it amazing that we have 500 people here from 90 countries meeting in real life to dwell over this very important and critical topic. I believe we're struggling with many parameters, and we're also struggling with a world that is changing very rapidly, and with a lot of turmoil coming from the fact that the power is shifting in the world for good and for bad. And globalization is part of this, and ICT is part of globalization. And what I heard from the panel that just finished and the questions that you put is, of course, a challenge to government. How can we take on the role of defending the freedoms, the important freedoms, when so many features are beyond control, at least at the national level. So that is why your presence here is important, because we really need to come to grips with all of this. And I heard you were talking about cyber attacks and the risks related to integrity and privacy if countries or the global community wants to defend itself from cyber attacks. Just so that you know, 180 countries around the world can actually make a cyber attack. And then I did not speak about non-state actors. So this is a real threat, and coming on top of all the integrity issues that we are trying to defend over the years, and that you have come here to to discuss. It's extremely complicated. And dealing with trolls, propaganda, disinformation, and hacking are challenges that we need to address, and to find a way to deal with this as we preserve the freedom and make full use of this fantastic tool is really a challenge. There is another developmental aspect that I wanted to mention, because I also hear you talk about this, including how the search motors work. I had the privilege to publish a book a few years ago when I was still an NGO on the global disorder, A New Global Order. And this book was actually about what we in the North or the West do not see, namely the amazing innovation going on in many, many parts of the world, not least when it comes to software, but making use of the ICT in many, many respects. And I really see this meeting as an opportunity to also spread that knowledge that so many good things are going on where we do not really see them. And as we know, those innovations do contribute to contacts and activities and interconnection, but also to economic development, creating jobs, leveraging human capital, and creating a consumer surplus. And I believe that's very important. And in the social context, it also helps people to access public services. And it could then strengthen government's capability to address citizens' needs. This faster and easier communication has created a lot of groups. We have filter bubbles, but basically this is about a free flow of ideas and empowerment of people in many countries, and having a primary public platform for social debate, action, criticism, and communication. And it's so important that a democratic, inclusive, and diverse society can make full use of pluralistic discussions, because I believe that what brings a government forward and a country forward is actually the interaction and the criticism that can come from various actors that would want to see their country or their community progress. And this is the basis for our rights-based approach in all the discussions that we have on digitalization. And it's essential that more people have access, because this is a public good. Regrettably, I see two factors that are threatening the positive benefits of ICT to democracy, human rights, and development. And first, it's the backlash from many authoritarian regimes affecting society, as well as online as well as offline. And of course, still many people are not at all involved in the ICT development. We have the tendency of a global trend of shrinking democratic space. It has already been touched upon. We see repressive legislation, administrative measures, harassment and violence that restrict people from making full use of the internet. It also limits people's chances to influence decision making, and ultimately this is a negative factor in what I just talked about, the possibility to influence how countries or regions or the world are actually governed. Journalists are being subjected to intimidation and harassment, which is affecting their ability to carry out their profession. And we can see this in the reports on human rights, democracy, and rule of law that we have recently issued in Swedish. But anyway, we cover 135 countries in our human rights rule of law reporting, including freedom on the internet that is covered there. And we cover countries from Norway to North Korea. So we see the same trend when it comes to the enjoyment of human rights on the internet. where we see repressive legislation that is accompanying legislation that is also about other activities related to the freedom of expression or freedom of assembly. Many human rights defenders are working to promote freedom of expression, women's enjoyment of human rights, LGBTI issues, both online and offline, and their work is becoming more and more precarious. According to frontline defenders, human rights defenders are subjected to digital attacks with varying degree of sophistication, and this happens virtually everywhere. And digital targeting of human rights defenders includes the interception of emails and voice or other type of communication. As we know, the hacking of websites, blogs and social network accounts, the installation of malware and spyware, the banning of websites and so forth. The second factor, in addition to the authoritarian tendencies, is of course the threat to the possibility to enjoy the benefits of ICT as a factor in development. We often talk about being part of the digital revolution, and we see a lot of things happening, as I mentioned earlier. But in fact, the lives of the majority of people around the world remain largely untouched by this development. Only around 15% can afford access to internet, if I'm correctly informed. And the majority of those that cannot access are women. Over 4 billion people around the world are not fully parties to the digital revolution. And this is the gender digital divide, and I'll dwell somewhat on the gender aspects. As you know, in a resolution on human rights and the internet adopted by the United Nations Human Rights Council last year, presented by Sweden and another core group of states, the High Commissioner of the United Nations on Human Rights was requested to prepare a report on the gender digital divide. The report will be presented at the Human Rights Council session in June, and I hope it will bring concrete ideas on how to close this gender digital divide and show the way forward in order to enhance access and participation for women. The Swedish government is a feminist government, and we have, as the first country in the world, a feminist foreign policy. This is about rights, it's about resources, and it's about representation, and all this is fully applicable also on gender aspects on the internet. It's about protecting rights and stopping the abuse, because we know that in many ways the internet has become a platform for diverse forms of violence against women in the form of pornography, sexist games, and breaches of privacy. For women who engage in public debate through the internet, the risk of harassment is experienced online. A recent Swedish survey shows that a majority of politically active women have received such threats online. And online vulnerability is often connected to offline vulnerability with threats, harassment, and violence in real life. The gender digital divide is also about resources, because well used, ICT can empower women to address barriers such as illiteracy, poverty, as well as cultural, religious, and legal taboos. It has the potential to be a global resource that enables women to exercise their right to make their voices heard, impart opinions, share ideas, build knowledge, access information, and create gender-based communities. ICT could lower the barriers for women to actively engage in politics, nationally, locally, globally, and in democratic life. If we want to move from potential to realization, a number of concrete steps must be taken. We need the real effective and meaningful engagement of all stakeholders in the way the internet is developed and managed, particularly by women and girls who have previously been marginalized from these processes. The increasing number of women online must and can be accompanied by greater empowerment of women and more widespread gender equality. And this is about our third R, representation. And inequalities in real life offline that block women's full engagement in the digital society must be addressed. Gender equality and an increased number of women online and in internet governance will have an impact on society as a whole. And we will see this through improved employment opportunities for women, the transformation of traditional gender roles, improved access by women, and especially women in rural areas, to distance learning and distance work programs, and a greater respect for women's enjoyment of human rights. I am born in the 50s, and so are many people in government. So we are immigrants in the digital society, while many of you that are here were actually born into this society. And this is why this gathering is so important, because we, the immigrants, we need to learn from you who were born into this society in order to come to grips with all the challenges to preserve, enhance and reconquer the freedoms, as we're also dealing with the integrity, privacy issues, and as we find ways both for governments and other responsible actors to make full use of this fantastic tool. Because it's up to all of us to tackle the threats and promote the potential. And this Stockholm Internet Forum is the ideal place to start. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, State Secretary Söder. Right, now it's the moment for the coffee break. But before you go, there's a couple of just housekeeping things. There's going to be a 15-minute break now. And then after that, we're going to break into the parallel sessions, which will explore in more depth some of the issues we've touched upon in these. I'm not going to run through them all. You can read them either here on the back of your ticket, if you've got incredibly good eyesight, or there's also an app, and there's also the website that will give you all the details, and including the rooms. If I try and do it, I'll get it wrong and it'll be chaos. But one thing that the organisers have asked me to point out is that over there at the back of the room is a no photo zone. So it's clearly marked on the tables, I believe. So just please respect if people are sitting at those tables that they don't want to have their photo taken. And if you're sitting at the table and you do want your photo taken, perhaps move. Okay, so now it's time for the coffee break. Enjoy your coffee, and then we'll break into parallel sessions, and we'll all get together at the end of the day to discuss what we've experienced. Thank you.